pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now, Jenny, will you do the roll call?
Councilmember Thorson?
Here.
Councilmember Wong?
Here.
Councilmember Cole?
Here.
Mayor Furlong is absent. Acting Mayor Peterson.
Here. Thank you. I have a motion to adopt the agenda.
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
Okay.
Aye.
Aye.
Consent agenda. We have from A to G items. Is anybody on the council would like to take one off to discuss, or is everybody okay with it? Okay, can I have a motion then to accept the consent agenda? Okay. Second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Bills are paid.
What?
The bills are paid.
The bills are paid. Okay, now we'll get into the city business action items and recommendations, selection of a city manager finalist to be interviewed. And I will have Mark Casey.
Madam Acting Mayor and members of the council, my name is Mark Casey, and I'm with David Drown Associates. And I have the privilege and the pleasure to be working on your search for your next city manager. In a few minutes, I'll be asking for your top 4 choices and who you'd like to choose to bring in for a live interview. Just want to remind everyone just to use the numbers and try not to refrain as best possible of any identifying characteristics, as much as him or her or the city they may work for or something that would identify that person, because these names are non-public. Now, once the finalists are named, those names are public. We will create bios, we will send those bios to the staff, and they can put them on the city's website, and if they wish to advertise to the local newspaper or whatever you wish to do. But we'll be sending those to you soon, once we get the identified. When we're all done with the number of candidates, if we can have just a discussion about interview day, which is set for August 31st, it's a Wednesday, and just to kind of need to know when the earliest the council could come in. If we could try to kind of look at in the sense of an hour for each finalist from a formal council interview standpoint. And then, so if we start at 4 o'clock, we're going to start getting kind of late into the evening, depending on how many you have, just to make sure we can have their full attention. And I know it's kind of a wearing day sometimes, so it'd be nice to kind of get a sense when the earliest you can start. And then I will put together a schedule and send that back to you, along with probably a proposed tour and some level of a staff panel too. And maybe just a little discussion on that also, if we could please. And by all means, I should have led this off with, if there's any questions, I can sure answer them now, or I can sure answer them throughout the whole process.
Are there any questions from anybody?
Not right now.
Not at this time.
I had received a phone call from the mayor, and he gave me his choices, and I have those written down. So if you'd like, I could just lead off with his 4 that he has, and then we can just maybe work our way through the council, if that's okay.
Are you going to keep track of them?
Yes.
Perfect.
And I got a backup here too to make sure I do it right. All right, so his 4 were candidate number 6, candidate number 9, candidate number 11, and candidate number 12. So those are, excuse me, 6, 9, 11, 12. Excuse me. Councilmember Cole, may I ask you if you're 4, please?
3, 6, 11, 12.
3, 6, 11, 12. Councilmember Wong?
8, 7, 12, 9.
8, 7, 12, 9.
Yes.
Councilmember Thorson?
I had 6, 3, 8, and 5.
3, 6, 8, and 5. And Acting Mayor Peterson?
I have 5, 6, 10, and 12.
So if the council is okay, we can eliminate candidate number 1, candidate number 2, candidate number 4. So those candidates not receive any votes. So candidates number 6 and 12 each received 4 votes. Is the council okay moving them forward? 4 votes for both candidates number 6 and number 12. Okay, so for sure 6 and 12. Then after that, everyone is either 1 or 2 votes. Number 5 with 3, okay. So we had number 5 with 3. So then we had, nope, okay, we don't, okay.
I'm still trying.
So this is what I have then. So candidates, who's left in the pool would be candidate number 3 has 2, candidate number 5 has 2, candidate number 7 has 1, candidate number 8 has 2, candidate number 9 has 2, candidate number 10 has 1, and candidate number 11 has 2. Yeah. So we could do a couple things is, we could just redo our votes again based on just how you would vote for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's 7 kind of in the running. We could see if there's a kind of a natural break after that. So if you could only vote for candidates 3, 5, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, if you could cast a vote just for them, if that makes sense, could we come back and then ask what everybody would vote for? And we'll see if that creates some kind of a grouping for the second round.
So a single vote or,
Let's try a single first, I think, because I think it might get confusing if we try to, unless somebody else has another idea, but. Or we could do 2 votes. I mean, that's, well, maybe we should do 2 votes. That's a good point with Councilmember Cole, since in theory we could have like 2 slots left if we wanted to do 4. At least to get to the top 4.
And could you repeat those
Yep,
numbers? one more time?
absolutely. Candidate number 3, 5, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Each one of you would get 2 votes. I would say that the mayor would say, just because one that was not on his list was candidate number 3 would have been his 5th choice. So I guess he just gets 1 vote since he's not here, if that's okay. So candidate number 3 would have 1 vote. So if folks are okay. Councilmember Cole, who would be your top 2 of that list left?
11 and 3.
Okay. Councilmember Wong?
Can I have another moment to?
Oh,
process?
absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah, hang on. I'm trying to
Hopefully
keep
I'm
up
not
on
going
the
too quick
scorecard.
here.
Yeah.
It's a lot to do, Quinn, and I don't want to make this too fast.
My original numbers?
Councilmember Thorson, do you know who 2 you'd like?
Yeah, I'll go with 3 and 5.
Okay.
5 and 11.
Okay.
8 and 7.
Alrighty. So to recap, candidate number 3 has 3 votes, 5 has 2, 7 has 1, 8 has 1, and 11 has 2. So maybe we could eliminate, if everybody is okay, if we eliminated, let's see here,
7 and 8?
9 and 10. Because they did not receive any votes.
Oh, okay.
Is that okay if 9 and 10 is eliminated?
Yeah.
Okay. So now what leaves active is 3, 5, 7, 8, 11. Would there be consensus? Well, okay, consensus on candidate number 3 had 3 votes. Would the council feel comfortable moving candidate number 3 forward?
I do. I do as well.
And I will.
Okay. Councilmember Wong?
Can we share the other numbers before moving them forward? Or,
Sure, whatever you,
Either
but my
remaining
thought, I guess, would
candidate.
be is we lock in another one and then we could have
I
a
see.
discussion on that 4th slot.
sure. I'd be okay with that.
Okay. So right now, we have 3 finalists identified, candidate number 3, candidate number 6, and candidate number 12. Now the question would be is, what candidate would be that 4th slot? I would recommend, if that's okay, if we do one more round of voting, and you're voting for 1 vote for either candidate, let's see here, candidate 5, candidate 7, candidate 8, or candidate 11. If that makes sense. So we got candidate 5, 7, 8, 11, and in 1 vote. Everybody okay with this so far? Okay, Councilmember Cole?
11.
Councilmember Wong?
8.
Councilmember Thurston?
I'll go with 5.
Okay, and Councilmember
5.
5. Okay. So as of right now, we have 2 votes for candidate 5, 1 for 8, and 1 for 11. So I guess the question would be, in front of the council would be, would the council feel comfortable moving candidate number 5 forward as a 4th finalist? They received 2 votes versus 1 for 8 and 1 for 11.
Yes.
Was there a priority in there from the mayor?
Not affecting these
Okay.
candidates. No. Nope, it was not. The candidates, I'm just going to double check real quick here. Candidate, the mayor had a vote, one of his original votes was for candidate number 11, but that, he already kind of used that up in the first round, in a
Okay.
sense. So, what we have then, it would be our 4 finalists, would be candidate number 3, candidate number 5, candidate number 6, and candidate number 12.
Okay, can I propose something?
Yes.
So, I think last time when we narrowed, would we come up with 5 or did we have 6 finalists? And then 2 of them pulled out, didn't they?
Yeah, I to double check, we had, I thought we had 4, then there's 2 people, we said if they, then we added them in afterwards, so like they were like on the bench.
So that's where, what I propose is that we widen the finalist pool maybe by these last 2 candidates that we're kind of close on, which would be, was it 8 and 7, or was it 11 and
11 and,
11 and 8? And then instead of doing it all in one day, we split it up and have 2 days of interviews. And then that way, it gives more flexibility to the candidates to choose a day, or, or if maybe, that, because looking back, I think that was one of the reasons why one of the finalists dropped out, because they couldn't meet the day that we changed. And then didn't we interview over 2 days instead?
2 separate, right, and we accommodated the ones that dropped, the one that could not make it because that's scheduled.
Because like you say, sitting here for 4 hours, I mean, it's doable, but
Does that work for you guys?
If I want to make sure I hear you say, so you'd like to have 6 finalists?
6 finalists, 3 a day. I know it's 2 extra hours, but it's split up over 2 days. And personally, I prefer to interview more than less, and then that gives us kind of a buffer if someone decides to drop out, like has happened in the past.
Whatever the wishes of the council would be.
What do you think?
The date of the 31st was advertised in the posting, but we can figure that out. I mean, that's not the,
What's the date? What's the date?
It's a Wednesday.
Wednesday, correct? Potential another option, just for you to consider, would be is if you went with 4 and if one of them dropped out, if you had your next preferred candidate, we could bring that person into the pool and have that as number 5. It's not saying what you're saying, but it just is another alternative would be is if you wanted to, if you feel comfortable with 4 and then we had one drop out, you could have your preferred.
Is 4 typically the number that you shoot for when you're doing for finalists, or I guess?
Okay, we do 3, whatever,
3.
but I'd like 4 personally in case somebody does drop out.
Okay.
Because if you do 3, unfortunately, someone drops out, then you're down to 2, and that just never feels right. So I always prefer, I'd at least have 3 and that 4th. But,
Well, maybe is it just one more candidate that we're kind of, I hate to just limit it to 4 people.
Sure.
If someone else has a candidate that they're strong for, it sounds like 11 was brought up multiple times, but just never, I'm okay with adding number 11. Or 2 more, whatever, I think, if someone's got a top candidate that they want to get into, I'd hate to just say, well, we're not going to do it because we're only going to do 4.
I'm comfortable adding a candidate or 2 to interview. I mean, that's what happened last time. I think we lost one. I guess my question to you is, let me rehearse that. I'm making an assumption that you will contact the candidates tonight or tomorrow after this concludes.
right.
And so if someone drops out, the individual that you may have contacted and said, sorry, now gets a call back.
Correct.
What's the likelihood that they'd even be interested knowing they didn't make the first cut?
I think they would still be interested. And just to make sure we clarify, we had 2 people. One person couldn't make it, so we accommodated that person when we changed the date. The other person we lost just pulled out of it and decided not to. They dropped out of the whole thing, not because of scheduling. They decided they just weren't interested in the position. Yeah. He picked 11 in his first round. I would say, I think that's a good assumption, that the mayor probably would have picked number 11 if he picked him once.
They're not on the list.
So I guess maybe one thing I'd potentially propose, and I know it's a little bit different than Council Member Thorson, I want to be respectful of what you were saying, but if you went with if you picked a 5th person as for in case somebody drops out, and then if somebody drops out, after I call everybody tonight, and my first question is to confirm that they can make the interview day, and they're still interested in the position. And then, for some reason, if they didn't or they dropped out in the short term, we could call back that person and whoever that last person, the 5th person is, and I also could let it known that you're the first one to be called back if somebody drops out. But by all means, if you wish to bring in 5 or whatever your wishes are, but
I'd be okay with it. I don't have a strong preference either way, though.
Yeah, I'm on board with what you
Do
said.
we want to bring in 1? Do we want to bring in 2?
Well, it was 11 was one
11
of them.
and 8 is what it was
11
down
and 8.
to.
Why don't we include those 2 in there and then try to do 2-day interview instead of 1?
okay.
Is that,
Yeah, that's fine.
does that sound like a
We're
plan?
looking for like the
As long
And then
as
if-
the availability is there, yeah.
And then if we end up with 5 candidates, if one of them drops out, then maybe we can look at doing it all in one day. I know but whatever is going to work for scheduling. So we got 3, 6, 12, 5, 11, and 8.
3, 5, 6, 12 were the original 4, and then adding 8 and 11.
Okay.
And would the councils be able to commit to a dates when I call people? What would be the next date for the second day of interviews?
September 1st.
Either the night before or the night after so that it's fresh.
Yeah, we don't want to go farther out.
My other question is, can we shorten the interview length? I felt that some of the interviewing, I thought that we don't need 45 minutes.
Okay.
My opinion, 15 questions. Can you curate the questions? Can we curate the questions? And see if we can get it down 30, 35 minutes. I don't know anybody else's comfort level, but
Yeah, it was cumbersome last.
Well, earlier I had emailed some questions about, maybe changing the process a bit. And do you want to just go over that for everyone?
Sure. So, Councilmember Thorson emailed Gary, who was here, who's my boss, whatever, and who kind of handled the process in the beginning. And I think if I articulate this correctly, you're asking a little bit about a couple things on the question. One would be, you guys bringing, having your own questions to come in. And by all means, if you have questions, I'm sure entertain them. We have to make sure that they kind of fit and they're appropriate. Not to say it would be intentions not to have them appropriate. But maybe it might be, trying to read the notes, maybe it might be better, Councilmember Thurston, if you wanted to just kind of.
Yeah, okay. So and this is just my opinion on interviewing, someone can interview really well and then it does not translate to being a good manager, right? And people train to interview. So maybe in devising our own questions, we can kind of cater them more towards North St. Paul and how we are. And I know not maybe specific, but maybe some way of making the questions kind of more geared towards North St. Paul in some way, shape, or form. My laptop just died and I had the email up in front of me, so now I'm trying to remember. And then some of it was maybe getting more input from staff in their interactions, because it seemed like each candidate, had a city tour, and they were showed around the city. And I don't know if it was the same person that did it the whole time or if it was 2 people, but they got to interact. I mean, that's how I kind of wish the interview would go. You kind of go around with a person for the day and you get to know them, but we just don't have the time and the capability to do that. Sitting down and grilling someone for an hour with these questions, it is what it is. But if we could, I would be all for shortening them up a bit too, and just maybe, if we can, instead of, I think it was 45 minutes, wasn't it kind of, but you don't want to do it too short, so maybe half an hour, maybe we get rid of, what do we have, 15 questions last time? Or was it?
Far higher than that, it was in the
17.
Okay, so maybe we eliminate 5 questions or something. But the responses back were, made sense. And, you don't want to ask staff to give an opinion on someone they just met, because it's putting them in a uncomfortable position if that person were to get hired and maybe they didn't give them a recommendation. And now, and likewise up here, I think one of your comments was it does make sense if we can all be in consensus with the final candidate, so they're coming into an environment that, oh yes, we're all unanimous. But, I think part of that was part of the problem last time maybe. We just had limited conversations and people weren't hesitant to share their thoughts. But I don't know. I mean, I guess I'll whatever we decide to do is fine with me, but I would agree with maybe possibly shortening it up a little bit.
I think definitely on the point in regards to getting more staff input, I think it does put the staff in a really awkward, difficult position to get good, honest feedback, because the people they're talking about may potentially be their boss.
But isn't there a way we can do that anonymously? I mean, isn't there, because like we had staff write stuff down and then they came, and one time they didn't bring the sheets up. Because it kind of felt like we were rushed. I mean, we had interviewed for 45 minutes. They brought the stuff up. We had 15 minutes kind of in between. And from my recollection, some of the input wasn't very helpful, you know, if they could. But again, they had limited time too with each candidate. So
Yep.
it's just kind of like an initial feeling like, oh, they were a nice person. Okay. I would think anyone coming in here is going to be nice. And if they weren't, then, you know, no one would want to be kind of, but,
Staff feedback forms are intended to be anonymous as they're put in there, but we could sure build in more time in regards to, but if the goal is to hopefully try to get a little bit more honest feedback from the staff, I think that will always be a challenge.
sure.
Back to the point, I guess, of knowing that this could be their boss at some time, and are they gonna, what's that gonna do to that potential relationship if they're the ones that were being critical of them? I just don't, it's difficult to be able to get that.
How many staff were doing that, filling out those sheets?
That was the department heads that were part of the interview process of the department head panel. So it was your fire chief, police chief, public works director, electric director, and finance director. In regards to, I guess, shortening, by all means, we can shorten the only thing I would say on that a little bit is that as this being probably one of the most important decisions you ever make as a council, and if you want to kind of try to bring in and cast that net a little bit wider, I don't know if 15 minutes less on each candidate is going to move the needle too much, and if that's where you want to move the needle or not. I don't know. But that's just I will do whatever the council wishes me to do in the number of questions, and we can make them at any length. Another option, and I don't know if this would be something that the council would be interested in, if we did it over 2 days, we could do a rotating one-on-one with the council members and do kind of a speed dating where you have a one-on-one with the candidate for 15 minutes and just an opportunity to and rotate that around. So if you did that over 2 days, we could do something, we could bring that in, and there's a little bit more opportunity. I mean, it's not a lot, but it does provide a little bit of a less formal atmosphere.
And would everyone be tied to asking the same question, or, yeah, so then it's just kind
Yep.
of, okay. I actually like that idea a little better, to try to get a feel for someone, but I know it might be a little more difficult to do, though.
I've done it in other communities and has worked if the council's willing to, for the time, and, and put that time and realize that it's, those are traditionally a kind of a 2-day interview time. But, yes, we could do that. And I guess from a time standpoint, I guess I would, if we could recommend, maybe September 1st,
Sure.
the next day.
Same time at 5 or 4 o'clock?
This is the second, I apologize. I'm just trying to find my schedule here, or what I've already had scheduled. Actually, August 30th would be, I do have an appointment on September 1st in the evening.
August 30th then?
Yeah, August 30th. And if the council was interested in kind of a one-on-one or not, I mean, I just don't know what your availability is during the day, so, and how late you want to go into the evening.
Everybody works.
Yeah.
Would that be something that maybe, would it be, have you ever done it before? Would it be appropriate if maybe the one-on-one portion, it's up to us to call the candidate and say, hey, expect a call from the council members, you know, and they're just looking for 15 minutes of maybe, you know, over the phone, or if people can't meet in person, or is that, I don't know. I'm just trying to think if that'd be more flexible for the candidates and the council.
I've never done that way. I'm just trying to think the logistics of 5 separate phone calls at different times. And maybe, I don't know, I mean, I guess if they're interested in the position, you know, I mean, that's maybe it comes with the territory. But the past communities, when we did the one-on-ones, it was kind of incorporated into an interview day
Okay.
or days.
I think for myself, I would prefer, you know, sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I prefer maybe having it all together,
Sure.
a bit cleaner.
My preference is a panel interview.
So, not the one-on-ones, correct? Okay.
Yeah, I don't, whatever they, you know, whatever people want to do, I'm pretty flexible. We don't know
Well,
what
that's what
Terry-
we're trying to figure out.
I know.
So, I support the 2-day interview, and I like the idea of the opportunity for one-on-one interviews for, you know, whatever it is, 10, 15 minutes.
It sounds like kind of what I'm hearing, is I'm hearing Councilmember Thorson in favor of what you just reiterated, and maybe Councilmember Cole of just a panel one time, and then is there a consensus? You got those kind of ideas that are out there. Is there a consensus on where people want to land on the numbers? Is 6 still where you want to be?
I'm comfortable with 6.
Okay.
I'm good with 6.
Same.
Okay.
Same.
So now so if we've got ourselves on the number, we got consensus on that, now a question of we could do 6 in one day, probably, but for sure if we did one-on-ones, that would be
No.
problematic. So is Councilmember Cole and Wong in regards to availability during the day for a second day, is that something that, I'm assuming Councilmember Thorson, it works for you?
Yep. I'll make it work, whatever we decide to do.
And I guess I don't know if anybody else can speak for the mayor. I don't know what his work schedule is like and availability.
Probably flexible.
He's pretty flexible.
Is he okay? So I guess maybe the next question then would be, if in fact there was wishes for the council to go to a 2-day interview that day before on the 30th,
That works for me.
30th, I'm not available. I'm available on the 1st.
or the first, I'm sorry.
I'm available on the 1st. I'm not on the
Okay.
30th.
I just have an appointment on the 1st at 7:30, so.
PM,
Yeah.
obviously. So if we did on the 1st, we'd have to be done by 6, or what time?
Yeah, I'd say about 6 would be,
Okay.
6:30.
First also works for me. And any time during the day or whatever, so.
Yeah, I can come out for
Councilmember Wong and Cole, would during the day on the 1st work?
What time frame?
I'm just spitballing here right now, but I would say probably start like noonish or something, maybe
No.
midday. If we did the one-on-ones, I mean, if we have 6 candidates, 15 minutes, it's a couple hours doing that.
Have we agreed to do one-on-ones, or are we doing panel? Have we
No, I'm sorry, we
Okay.
haven't decided that.
referenced that? That's why I asked.
Yeah, great question. And I was presumptuous. I didn't mean to say that. I guess we know for sure if you do a panel, half hour, 45 minutes, or whatever that panel would, you probably want a little bit of, I would say you're probably in a pretty close to, if it's one day, 3 hours, with a little bit of a room to do a panel interview, 3.5 maybe or something, just to make sure you have enough. And if you want some time for deliberation. So, so back to the time, I guess, noon,
No. I can make myself available after 3 o'clock.
3 o'clock? Okay.
on the 1st, I can make it after 3 as well.
Okay.
The 31st as well. I mean, I'm available both days after 3.
3 o'clock, okay.
Right now look good.
So maybe that allows you some flexibility where if it works on August 31st
Yep.
to start at 3 and we get 4 people in one day and maybe 2 on the first, you know, whatever, however you want to schedule them in.
Yes. Does the council have a suggestion on how you wish to deal with the decision or how to resolve the question about if you want to do one-on-ones or not? I mean, I don't know for sure how you wish to make that decision as a council, if you want to formally bring that to a vote or to be able to get consensus on. So it sounds like we have consensus on 6 people. So it sounds like we have consensus on having the interviews on the 31st and the 1st. Start the council portion at 3 p.m.
I'm okay with the panel.
I would prefer a panel.
So would I.
Perfect.
Okay.
All right. Great. No one-on-ones then.
Sorry?
That's all we're looking for, right? The
That is
answer.
correct.
So great.
So-
Perfect.
Make sure I'm 100% on the same page. The interviews will be will be 6 candidates, interviews on the 31st and the 1st, beginning at 3 o'clock on both days for a formal council panel. And it'll be the wishes of the council to have those panels half-hour long,
Yep.
30 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Another question, I guess, would be is let's get a double check here. A couple of your candidates will be traveling some distance. Last time, the council chose not to look at any kind of reimbursement in against like lodging or mileage or anything like that. Just want to reiterate just to see if that is something, if the council, once again, has interest in that. Councils are all over the board on that. Some will just do a flat number, some will do none, some will just, some level of reimbursement or something based on receipts. I'm just going to double check on your candidates. Candidate number 3 will be coming from Onalaska, Wisconsin. Oops, look at that, I already screwed it up. I apologize. I identifying characteristic, I did exactly what I asked you guys. Well, I guess it's a finalist, so. But still, though, I probably shouldn't have said the city, apologize. And
You said last time we opted not to.
I asked the question, and,
Okay.
and the feedback I got was that the council was not interested. Just bear with me. All your other candidates are coming from,
Metro.
yeah, just want to double check, make sure I didn't screw that up. Yes, all your other candidates are coming from the metropolitan area, so you just have one from really a couple hours away. So,
I mean, I think we just say, stay consistent and say it's not something we're going to do.
sure.
I mean, it'd be different if our 6 candidates were all out of state, and then I think we would need to consider, reimbursement, because I think what happens might be once they find that out, they say, well, if you're not going to cover my travel expenses, I'm not interested, right?
Sure. Okay, consensus on, okay.
Yep.
All right. I guess the last question would be in regards to the staff panel. The mayor had a suggestion about including Dr. Craig Waldron as part of the staff panel, and to see if that's something that would be acceptable by you four. I'm not for sure he's available or not, but I could sure reach out to him and see if that's something that he may potentially be interested in.
I'd be open to it, so long as he provides some, if he's just going to agree with whatever our department heads say, I don't really see the value it brings, because it's a contracted position, right? And I think, I trust our department heads that we have and the judgment that they have. So, I mean, I don't envision what angle he's going to bring.
He's experienced, I mean, been around for a long time, right?
And sorry, Lisa, I jumped the gun, sorry.
Are you done,
No,
Candy?
I just think, I've seen him in a public setting. When we had the discussion about the community center, and he did a really nice job that night.
Yeah, I would welcome his presence for that.
Okay. Councilmember Cole, is that okay?
Yeah, I'm comfortable with Dr. Waldron. I guess I would like to even expand on it a little bit. There are multiple department heads who may have a conflict of interest in sitting on the internal panel. So who do we ask them to recuse themselves? Do they,
Yeah, I would see that
and do we look to maybe expanding the outside panel?
Sure. Maybe to answer the first question, I guess what I would envision for the panel would be is your police chief, fire chief, public works director, and your finance director. Those department heads would be who I would recommend. That's who I would envision would be in that role, and then it'd be the fifth member, if you wish to have, would be Dr. Craig Waldron as a staff panel. So I'm not aware of any conflict of interest in regards to those 5 members on that panel. But it could be if the wishes of the council not to have, that would be, I guess, would be traditionally it's kind of your department heads, in a sense, would be on that. But
If everybody else is comfortable with it, I'm fine. I just don't want, there's, of that list, there's still 2 potential conflicts in that group, but they also need to have a say in who the next city manager is going to be. So if I'm the only one that's a little uncomfortable with it, I'm comfortable with being the only one. So you guys make the call.
Well, yeah, we don't know what the mayor thinks. I'm okay with it.
I'm okay with the department heads, and I don't think we need to hire Dr. Waldron to be a part of it.
Yeah, I'm in support of having the department heads and Dr. Waldron.
Okay. I'm the department heads and Dr. Alder are fine with me.
okay, sounds like there's consensus there with that.
Great.
And then can I just go back and build on a comment that Councilmember Thorson started? And that's the information that we received from the internal interview panel. Can we ask them to force rank? You're going to see the notes. You can run the tally sheet so there's nobody looking at, I recognize somebody's handwriting, or can we get better direction from them than what we had last go-around, I guess would be my question.
Couple thoughts, if I can speak freely. One would be I don't know back to how many staff feel comfortable in that position of ranking if they know if there's any chance that would get out. I think that puts the staff in a tough position. I would say, if I am free to say philosophically, and maybe you don't care how I feel about that, but I just like to say it anyways, I think that I feel like that's the role of the council as a representative form of government, and what you're appointed to do is that is your decision to make. And I would, of all the searches that we do, not to say we're doing it the right or somebody's doing it wrong, we do not have the staff rank that the candidates.
Okay.
We leave that up to the role of the council. But like yourself and many councils, they want to have input from the staff because they know that the staff has to work with these folks, and they know that. And that was the intent of the kind of the fit questions, in a sense. Do you think this person would be a good fit or not? How do you think this person would fit into the community? And they give their, and into the staff and into the council's vision and wishes and things like that. So that's where we're hopefully be able to get that, glean that kind of information from the staff. But ultimately, it would, and that's, we try to make that very clear to the staff that this decision's up to the council, but they'd like to hear your input.
Okay.
Yeah, that makes sense.
What information is staff provided, if any at all, or is it mostly just conversation?
Absolutely. So they'll get a packet similar to some of the information you have. So they would see the candidate's resume, cover letter, and the bio, job description, profile. That'd be the materials that they would receive.
But no video?
Correct.
Okay,
No video.
thank you.
Nor the intellectual profile or the personality index. Or the background check or the your references. That's stuff that you guys see, but
Okay, thank you.
you bet. And they're also part of the discussion guide that you received about questions that can and cannot be asked. They receive that information and a ranking, or not a ranking, but the feedback forms for them to be able to formulate their thought process. And it sounds like what I'm hearing, it maybe not enough time, so that's so we can build some more time if the council wishes to be able to kind of ruminate our process a little bit. We can try to build in as much as we can with that too. And then traditionally we try to provide some level of a tour for the non-internal candidates, but the tour and the staff interview can be done prior to 3 o'clock, so that is not, it makes it a long day for the candidates, but it doesn't interfere with the end times and encroach into your times. Well, I think we have consensus, I believe, to move forward. I will contact all 12. If anybody does say they're not interested, which I doubt, but it'd be, we'll see. I guess we'll guarantee that all, and then we'll start picking the dates, I guess, to see, we can make sure we lock them in both on the 31st and the 1st.
Thank you for your work.
Thanks, Mark.
Thank you.
Okay. Make a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, and the next regular scheduled city council meeting will be August 16th